Welcome back to Turtles Hot Rods. Today, we're going to play with block. Insert whatever four-letter cuss word is your favorite. Apparently, those things were full of dirt. Alright, so I'm going to learn you something today, folks. This is the factory camshaft that comes in a Chevy 5.3. You can see these lobes right here, these little egg-shaped deals. As the engine spins, and this spins in the engine, these lobes turn around and the lifters ride on the lobe. And then the lobe comes around to the high point, and it pushes the lifter up, which pushes the push rod down, which pushes the push rod up, which does the rocker like this, which pushes the valve open. And then whenever it comes over and the lifter's riding on the backside, the valve will close. And that's how the intake and exhaust valves open and close thousands of times a minute or whatever in your engine, to let it intake and exhaust and sit there and run. Now, you can see, if I put these side by side, comparing a factory camshaft, it just wants to roll, and this performance camshaft, which is a Brian Tooley Racing Stage 3 truck cam, you can see the difference. And the difference is not in the height of the lobes, but the shape. You see how this one is much more rounded and this one is more egg-shaped? This one is much wider. And what that's going to do is it's going to open the valve sooner and keep it open longer, allowing you to get more air in and more air out. Because the more air you can move with your engine, the more fuel you can throw at it, the more horsepower you will make. Now, the spec sheet for this cam is right here. If you'd like to read it, pause, and you can check it out. So, that being said, no idea what the stock specifications are of this one, but it just, you know, runs quiet, smooth, makes 300 horsepower or whatever. This one right here should be able to make, you know, roughly 500 horsepower with a good intake and exhaust and tune. So let's get it in the motor. Can't have too much lube. Two. Three. The screwdriver is to be able to push down to lift up that back cam bearing in the very back of the engine, just to give you some leverage. I'm gonna put a little more on it because my hands were on it pretty good down here. I mean, you really can't have too much lube. It is not possible. Just be gentle going in now. Don't force it. Kind of spin it a little bit like it's a T if you don't want to go. And eventually, you'll get it in there just like that. Woo! So, the next step that I am doing is swapping out all the valve springs. So if you don't know, whenever you do a camshaft swap, most of the time you have to change out your valve springs because the valve springs, while they look the same, the old ones versus the new one, they have different rebound and strength and whatever science goes into the springs, because this new cam is going to open the valves sooner and they're going to stay open longer than the old valves, than the old camshaft. So you got to do something to change it up, or else you may have problems with valves hitting engines, or it just ain't gonna work right. Pretty simple process. There's tons of YouTube videos on how to do it. So if you're trying to know how to do it, go watch somebody else. I'm just going to set up a time lapse. I'm using this valve spring compressor tool, and I'm just going to do one at a time. are doing the onion bearing upgrade. If you don't know, the bearings inside of these rockers is called the onion. I don't know why they call it that, but there's little needle bearings inside of there, and these are kind of loose and wobbly, and they're known to fail. And these have 200,000 miles on them, so we're gonna swap them out for some sealed ball bearings. At least I think that's what they are. Came with the camshaft kit. You take a 13mm socket on one side, and then a 22 size socket on the other, or something similar to it, and then you can get your onion bearings out. I'm just going
trunnion bearings.
Trunnion, sure, whatever. And you just take it out. There you go. So it has like little needle bearings. That one's already wanting to seize up. So, and then we'll put some better ones back on it. See, that'll happen. What you doing, buddy? He's just chilling, living his best life. So now we have to reinstall, well, install for the first time the new bearings. So the new bearings are still needle bearings. I thought they were ball bearings. But basically, I have to press in this into there, and then put the trunnion in it, which is this thingy. And then I have to flip it over and use a washer and a socket to install the other one on top. So let's see what that looks like. Everything was going great until I got to the right side of the engine, and then the engine would no longer spin 360 degrees, and I figured it out. Well, we found the problem. Patrick's done wiped away most of the goo, but there was a rock in this cylinder. There's chunks of it. It was stuck on the top of the piston, and it busted itself to pieces. You can see little pieces of it right there, little pieces of the gray rock that come out of the driveway.
All right, now
I guess whenever I was pressure washing. So
edit in a little woo, 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 woo. Public service announcement. If you're going to power wash your heads, don't do it in a gravel driveway.
Yeah, so we're going to clean that cylinder out and pretend that didn't happen, and then put it all back together. I believe we're going to get off with a warning on this one. So that is the only damage to the cylinder head, and there is a slight little divot in the top of the piston, but the pistons are aluminum, cylinder heads are aluminum, so that's kind of expected. I'm going to clean that piston real good and make sure it's not cracked. I don't think it could be from that, but I suppose anything's possible at this point. And then I'm going to clean everything and then put everything back together. Tighten up all my rocker arms, then I'm going home. There is the only damage to the piston. You can't feel it with your finger. Nothing's sticking up or anything, so I think we're going to get off lucky on that one. There's a little bit of scratches down there, but nothing is wrong with the cylinder walls that we can see. Where'd my ratchet go? Oh. Nothing is wrong with the cylinder walls. There's no scratches or anything. One piece of something. There's little pieces of residue, oil residue and stuff, but no scratches or nothing. Man, them cylinder heads cleaned up so good. I believe I'm gonna leave them shiny, leave them bare aluminum. I like that quite a lot. I sprayed some Osfo on the block. I dried it really good with an air blower and a leaf blower. And then once it was good and dry, I spritzed it down with a layer, a thin-ish, you know, fully covered but thin-ish layer of Osfo. And hopefully it will be fully dry by tomorrow evening so I can put some paint on it. And what the Osfo does is it converts all of the rust into iron phosphate instead of iron oxide. And iron phosphate is inert and paint sticks to it good. And it also acid etches the metal. So you can see where it's gray like that. It was rusty, but it's perfectly clean, you know, or it's on its way to being perfectly clean. That's why you see little foamy places. That's literally, that is chemical reactions happening. So, and I also sprayed aluminum brightener on all of the aluminum on the engine and transmission. And what that does, other than just brightening it up, it removes oxidation from the aluminum. Just like Osfo does for steel or iron, aluminum brightener does the same thing. And it also acid etches all of my metal. Whenever everything gets good and dry tomorrow, we ought to be able to paint it, and the paint will stick, and it will stick good. Yeah. I'm happy with how this turned out. The cylinder heads, all this residue, that's white residue from that Osfo junk. And I should be able to clean that up with some Scotch-Brite or some aluminum brightener or just a rag with some cleaner on it. All right, well, engine is painted. Now it's time to get all of the pretty shiny bits painted to make this really look nice. So here in the next few minutes, we are going to get, well, here in the next few minutes of the video, we're going to get valve covers painted, intake manifold painted, AC compressor, alternator, power steering pump, starter, water pump. And then we're also going to paint idler pulleys, tensioner pulleys, power steering pump pulleys, all of the pulleys for all of my accessories. I'm going to paint them gloss black. The bracketry that goes onto the front of the engine that holds all of that schmuck is also going to be painted shiny black, as well as a heat shield for the transmission and a few other little bits and bobs. But, oh, we're also going to paint the header. Alright, well there you go. When I say polished, that's what I'm talking about. Well, it is the next day. I've been over here at the shop getting stuff ready for a couple hours. And today we're painting black. We're also going to paint some more clear coat on a few things. But before I get to any painting, I have to get to washing. I have my little Harbor Freight $85 pressure washer. And it does not work nearly as good as that one that we rented. But it works good enough, and I'm going to clean this rear end up as best I can. I'm going to wash it really good, and then I was going to sandblast it, but I'm thinking about more along the lines of just spraying it down with some Ospo. If I even do that, I don't really know, because this is going in the Firebird, and it's just got a lot of parts on it, and I don't feel like taking everything off. So I'm probably just going to chemically treat it, and then I might end up painting it tomorrow, which it should be just as good. But, you know, I just want it to look decent under there. My Firebird's not a show car. As far as this stuff goes, just going to pressure wash it. This is for the truck. That holds the alternator and a idler pulley. There's a tensioner pulley, power steering pulley. The power steering pulley was wet with grease, and I scraped it all off. This can come down and be put into storage. It's finished. The AC compressor, I'm going to tape up the whole body and untape this front pulley and paint the entire front pulley shiny black. Same thing with the water pump, same thing with the alternator. These bottom parts of the valve covers, they could be done right now. However, I am going to clear coat them whenever I clear coat the top half of the valve covers, just because there's a noticeable difference in the shine level of this gloss single stage and this clear coat. So because these are front and center main focal point on the engine, I want the paint to match, because it's going to be sitting right next to each other. So I'm going to clear over these valve covers after I sand and polish the Chevy script across the top. That'll be the last thing that I do. That'll be after I've painted black, and after I have done a lot more work. Anyway, I got a lot of work to do, and I'm probably not going to show any of this pressure washing, because I don't want to get all of my clothes dirty. I don't want to get all my clothes wet and nasty. I have some other shoes I'm going to change into, but I'm probably going to strip down naked and pressure wash all this stuff and hope nobody sees me. So, can't show that on YouTube. But another thing I'm wanting to do in this video is get these headers Cerakoted. And we have, we bought the Cerakote kit. This is the C series, which is air dry. And I've used this stuff before. I really, really, really like it. You do one coat and you're done. It dries in you know, a couple hours or whatever, and it is fully heat resistant and everything. But you have to sandblast the headers in order for it to stick. You absolutely have to. And so I'm going to clean them first with some prep clean, some wax and grease remover type stuff, and then I'm going to actually weld on the reducer. So we're going to run 2.5-inch exhaust on this truck, and these headers are 3-inch collectors, and this one's bent a little bit, and I tried straightening that back with some pliers and couldn't. So I'm going to straighten it a little bit before I weld this on. But this will go on, and then we have some V-bang clamps that will get welded onto the end of that. And I don't have any stainless steel wire for my MIG welder, but I'm just going to go ahead and weld it on with these since I'm Cerakoting over it anyway. All of it's going to be sandblasted, and it will all be the same color, kind of an aluminum, shiny looking. So anyway. Well, it is about time to put the transmission on. Finally. Did a little bit of work off camera. I had to get some shims to put in between the motor mounts there. And I also had to make these holes in the frame more oval so that my motor mounts could slide inward. I was having troubles with things lining up. I ran some of the brake lines off camera. Nothing is permanently attached. All of my connections are just finger tightened, and the lines are loosely ran about where they're going to go. They will be clipped down and made nice later. Waiting on the rear brake hose, which will be at O'Reilly's tomorrow. We'll go pick it up, and then I can get the rear brake lines on. And once I do that, I'm going to drill holes and clip everything in, but I'm going to do that off camera. So I've got everything prepped and ready for the transmission to go on. I have to torque down my flex plate bolts here and the crankshaft bolt in the front and finish filling up the torque converter. It's a Circle D torque converter, came with the cam kit, and then I can put it on the transmission and we can put it all together. Well, that is going to bring us to the end of this long video. I did a lot today, and still have a lot left to do. So, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button, leave me a comment, subscribe if you're new, You can follow me on Instagram and get behind the scenes updates kind of as I'm going there. And pay attention to my YouTube shorts and stuff, because I post short form content in between all these long videos. So next episode we'll be running exhaust and tidying up all the brake lines. I didn't really show installing them because it's really simple, but I'll show how they're installed next video, as well as we're putting the body back on the frame, and we're going to take all the bars out of the inside of it, and hopefully body work the dashboard and stuff. So next video is going to be fun, just like this one was. Thank you for watching.